Hey everyone, me Kevin here. Y'all know that I like to go deep when it comes to analyzing what's going on in Congress and the White House. And so what I thought I'd do is give you a quick summary, kind of putting together my thoughts on the next round of stimulus using all of the information from all of the prior videos that I've brought to you, all of the breaking news, what the Fed thinks, what Congress thinks, and all that. We're just gonna make this very, very simple. And I'm gonna do that by pulling up my iPad, the handy dandy iPad, because it's always so helpful for us. So I wanna start by addressing these plans. We remember these, right? The Emergency Money for the People Act. We signed a petition and got over 112,000 signatures for this, and the White House did not yet respond. Who knows, maybe one day they will. But anyway, that's the $2,000 per month plan. Then there was the Boost Act that we heard about. That was the $2,000 per month during the pandemic and $1,000 after. That seemed pretty neat as well, except we knew that the Emergency Money for the People Act had more of a likelihood because this was submitted by people in Congress that Trump isn't really the biggest fan of. Some of these folks were kind of instrumental in the impeachment vote, let's just say. Okay, it should be self-explanatory there. Anyway, moving on. Monthly and Economic Crisis Support Act. This one came a little bit late, but it's a Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris proposal, $2,000 per month. This was cool though because it was actually proposed in the Senate, and it gave us a lot more hope because both of these were proposed in the House, and we know that the Senate is where it's at right now, right? These are generally, I mean, you've got 100 people in the Senate, you've got 435 folks in the House of Representatives. Generally, people view the Senate as more senior to the House. Then there was even the Rent and Mortgage Cancellation Act, which said, you know what, just cancel rent and cancel all mortgage payments. This one fell out of favor pretty early though, because come on, let's be real. If we're gonna have one of these, we may as well have one that just gives us recurring monthly payments, because guess what, that would solve the rent and mortgage problem for many folks. Unfortunately, a lot of these have fallen substantially out of favor as Congress and the White House have taken a very let's wait and see approach to responding. And so I personally believe that these are not likely. That is, they have probably less than a 10 to 5% chance of actually happening. So let's go on to something else that has a little bit more of a chance. Let's talk about this. Heroes pay for essential workers. This would be if you're, a hospital worker, a nurse, maybe an ambulance driver, police, firefighter, or you work in a grocery store, sanitation, whatever. That's something that's been very popular, sort of targeted relief for those individuals. I personally think this would have had a very high likelihood had we been on lockdown longer. I think while the country is on lockdown, that is almost a requirement, and that should have happened way earlier. We should have seen heroes pay, an extended pay for people who are choosing to stay at work, while at the same time other folks are able to take advantage of, and I'm not saying this in a wrong way, just it is what it is, take advantage of the fact that you could be on unemployment and make potentially more than what you were making before. So I really think that heroes and essential workers got really shafted during the last round of stimulus. Unfortunately though, Congress doesn't really have a memory, so they don't go back and say, hey, we feel bad for what happened for you in the past, so let's give you more stimulus now. So keep that in mind. And then we've got the back to work credit. This is one that we've been hearing about a lot, right? This is the $450 if you go back to work and you get off unemployment. And we're hopeful that this is going to apply to everybody, but right now it's only being suggested as a way for the government to save money because they'll basically pay you a little less money from the unemployment fund, which implies that you would have had to have been on unemployment, which again, literally screws and slaps in the face heroes and essential workers and anybody who's already gone back to work. This also currently would expire anyway at the end of July, and quite frankly, I don't know that we're going to see this bill passed before the beginning of July, so we'd really be talking about a 3-week thing here. I don't know that this is going to survive. There would have to be a broader program, ideally a simpler program that just says, look, if you're on disability, if you're on Social Security, if you have already gone back to work, you know what? Everybody's getting a little bit of a boost. And keep this in mind, because there's an easy way to do this, and we already have the big green light for this. So the optimism is coming. Hold on, it's looking good. And I'm not trying to be falsely optimistic. I always want to be realistic in my videos, and that's why I keep you updated here. I'll get to where that is in just a moment. But both of these, I feel like, are complicated and they're for specific workers. I think the government at this point, from everything that we're putting together, they want everybody back to work, right? Everybody wants to get back to normal. And honestly, Lauren and I, look, we did a vlog yesterday or the other day that we posted, and both of us, we're sick and tired of being stuck in here, okay? We're like ready. We're ready to get out. And she's got asthma. She's like, Kevin, look, I said I would stay in here for a year if I needed to. And now she's like, Kevin, I can't handle it anymore. You know? So I think we're all kind of losing it a little bit. Okay, so for these things, the heroes pay and the essential workers, you know, I'm putting this at 40 to 60%. Even though there's a lot of kind of push around this potential heroes plan idea here, or sorry, the back to work bonus, I don't know. It just seems A, complicated, B, it screws a lot of people. It's basically punishing to the people who went back to work. And then it's just getting people off unemployment. And those are the only ones who would benefit from sort of this back to work boost. Not saying that that's bad. I'm just saying I think it's bad if it's the only solution. It's not that good. It's not simple. It's not broad enough. All right, so that we've got a 40 to 60%. Then we've got this $1,200 stimulus check. We know the House passed that, but we just had a double-folded bad news set come out over the last couple days. Of course, I broke these to you in other videos, but I'm just gonna give you the quick summary here to catch you up in the event that you did not see those videos. Basically, what happened is the Bureau of Economic Analysis came out with data that showed that basically, even though we got stimulus money, we didn't really stimulate the economy. Instead, most of us just kept the money in savings, or at least a good portion of it. And so even though incomes went down in the form of wages and salaries, our income went up, our expenses went down, and our overall saving rate jumped 33%. That's not what Congress wants to hear. And I'm not blaming anybody, okay? Look, a lot of us put the money into stocks, okay? Come on, guess so that's probably the good thing to do. And you know what? If we paid off some debt or saved it, you know what? That's probably the right thing to do as well, okay? But it's not what Congress wants to believe that we're going to do with the stimulus checks. I almost think they're sitting in Congress going, well, if we give them all $1,200, they'll go out and buy some new shoes and shades, and it'll stimulate the economy. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. Well, I guess I kind of just did speculate. Anyway, the $1,200 stimulus checks, the next round, which would also include college students and adult dependents. It would apply to a broader range of people. And if you're a dependent, you would get $1,200 instead of $500. Unfortunately, that I think is going to fall out of favor compared to what could actually potentially be better for us. I'm actually now, because of that latest information regarding the Bureau of Economic Analysis and because of Democratic senators in the Senate, well, senators in the Senate, Democrats in the Senate saying, hey, you know what, we're not too confident on more stimulus checks, on more direct payments, I'm now dropping this potential to somewhere between 60 to 70%. That is, I still think it's likely, but it's starting to lean a little bit more towards possible and then potentially towards not possible. We'll see. But it's definitely gone down from the 90+ percentile chance of happening. Instead, let's now talk about what we're more likely to see. Some form of litigation support, not immunity. We know that Republicans are clamoring for this. We're probably gonna see something like that. I don't think it's gonna be as strong as Republicans want, but we'll see something like that. A little bit of state and local government funding, that's not that fun. More funding to hospitals, okay, got it. Payroll tax cut. Here we go, folks. This is the thing. The payroll tax cut, as much as when we hear that we hate it, who's the biggest supporter of it right now? Donald Trump. He's literally the guy that at every turn says payroll tax cut, payroll tax cut. Yeah, that's a good idea. Payroll tax cut. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do the payroll tax cut. And look, it does somewhat make sense. It's not as simple as the other forms of stimulus, but let's do a quick bit of math here. We've got about half of the year to go, right? So let's pull up a calculator here, and let's say you made $30,000 a year. So we've got our calculator. Let's say you made $30,000 a year. If we divide that by 2, that means in the second half of the year, you're going to make $15,000. Well, ordinarily, you would pay for this second half of the year on those wages, you would pay around 7.65% in payroll taxes. if you don't have to pay those payroll taxes, you would actually save $1,147. So, and that's over 6 months. So it's kind of like you got a $1,200 stimulus check, but it's much more complicated. You would just take home more money. This basically would work out to, divided by 6 months, would work out to about $200 a month if you made $30,000. Now, the more money you make, the more of a benefit you get, but I imagine at some point, at some income threshold, you won't have the benefit of anymore. So let's say if you were able to take this benefit up to $100,000 of income, divide it by 2, so that way you could see the payroll tax benefit for the rest of the year. Sorry, $100,000 divided by 2 is $50,000 divided by 2, there we go. Okay, now let's divide $50,000, well, let's multiply $50,000 by 7.65%. That's how much money you would pay in payroll taxes on $100,000 of annual income for 6 months. This would be your portion of payroll taxes. So bottom line, if you made $100,000, you would potentially save or take home an additional $3,825 for July 1st through December 31st. And you would see that on your paycheck every single time you get paid. If you divide that by 6 months, that would basically work out to a $637 stimulus credit sort of to you per month if you made $100,000 per year. And again, we kind of did the math for $30,000, we did it for $100,000. You now know how to do the math, so you could do the math to see what you would benefit from a payroll tax cut. But you gotta look at it and say, hey, it does kind of do what Democrats are looking for, which is provide relief to people, give you more money in your pocket. It does do that. And it also gets people back to work, which is what Republicans want. So the payroll tax cut seems insanely more likely than anything else at the moment. So I am personally putting that at an 80% probable chance of happening. That is, I think it is going to happen. The reason it's 80% and not like 90 to 100% certain is because now we're getting more of this thought of, hey, well, the longer we wait and see, the less likely it seems we might even need another stimulus program. And that's very frustrating to hear, but right now I do think there is still plenty of support for additional stimulus. So that's probably the greatest likelihood. And then, of course, these are almost slam dunks here. Let's pull up the slam dunks. This is what I would call the slam dunk. Focus on fixing what works, right? Which is what this is. That's sort of just a congressional quote. Extending forbearance and eviction moratorium. We might see that. I actually think that's 95% likely. They really want to make sure everybody gets the opportunity to catch up on their payments without getting evicted or going into foreclosure. The last thing we need, as Jerome Powell says, is a financial crisis on top of a human crisis and this economic crisis that we're experiencing. So extending forbearance and eviction, very likely, highly likely. PPP flexibility. They've already started passing legislation to make that more flexible. And then, of course, possibly more funding for the SBA. I really see that happening. They're highly underfunded. I don't know if they're going to fix the grants. I think I put verse grants on purpose because I don't see them coming back and saying, yeah, let's give everybody with a side hustle those grants again. So if you got your $1,000 or $1,000 per employee, whatever you ended up applying for, congratulations. If you didn't, I don't know that the grants are going to come back, but you will still have probably the opportunity of getting that 30-year loan with the Small Business Administration, and of course applying for the PPP if you have not yet, which I do encourage you to do with Cabbage. And no, I'm not sponsored by Cabbage. I'm only sponsored by the link to life insurance down below. Really awesome life insurance, the 2 free stocks with Webull. When you deposit $100, get 2 free stocks up to $1,400, and my programs, which coupon code does expire tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.